Welcome to Your Mind is Trying to Kill You podcast. Join your host, Alexandros and co-host Vincent Byrne as they walk you through the deepest recesses of the mind and how it operates. They discuss all the reasons why our minds persistently get in the way of our evolution, growth, and our success. But crucially, they also teach you what you can do to change your destiny. And now, here's your host, Alexandros.
Well, hello and welcome to our 46th episode of the infamous Your Mind is Trying to Kill You podcast. I am your host, Alexandros.
And I'm your co-host, Vincent Byrne.
And today we're going to talk about a subject that is very near and dear to my heart. And that is the subject of inspiration. Inspiration, my friend. Do we know what it is?
Well, you're the artist.
But here's the deal. What we will attempt to prove to this court is that it is not just the artist that is in need of inspiration. Number one. Number two, inspiration doesn't solely have to do with artistic expression. What do you think about that?
Okay. Well, I suppose while it's always been associated with art and writing and coming up with good ideas, I suppose is the way it normally stretches out beyond the artistic realm in the way in which people refer to it. I suppose it relates to instinct and connecting with those parts which are not part of the normal thinking mind. That would be the way I would look at it. So it's a little bit in following intuition, connecting with where that comes from. So that's where I would see it, and therefore it is valid everywhere. Decision making, in business, life, survival, whatever, it's all there.
Bingo. That's exactly right.
So I have learned over these 45 episodes.
You're like the teacher's pet.
I am.
It is, I would say, generally speaking, it is, as I just said, the major misdirection or misconception that inspiration is to do solely or primarily with artistic expression. Why? I could create a brief parenthesis in there and give you my hypothesis on that. Everything, as we've said time and time again, everything that happens in the world is largely concerned with curbing the enthusiasm, curbing the power of the masses, much like it has been throughout the ancient years. The masses cannot hold the power, cannot have power. The masses having power has always been a very dangerous proposition to whoever is ruling. So going back to the element of inspiration, it is absolutely 100% true that inspiration can and will create and nurture the natural power that we all have, but we rarely get to be exposed to and use. So if I found a way, or if I managed to find a way to isolate and segregate and marginalize that kind of power, inspiration, just give it to the few, give it to the special ones. Because, we all know that not all people are special, right? Only the few can be recognized as inspirational, inspiring geniuses and artists and such. The rest of the people are just cattle. That's, I believe, the mainstream approach. This is what I've seen. This is what I've experienced throughout my life.
So the narrative, in order to keep everyone down and not believe that they have the capacity for inspiration themselves, the narrative is that it is a special power and only some people have it. Is that it? So then people don't go looking for it and they don't recognize it if they happen to stumble across it. It's almost like they're not worthy to have it, worthy enough to have it.
That's right. And I mean, you don't have to go far. I can tell you that my repeated experience with people coming in communication with me, or just coming across the work that my artwork, they tell me, it almost feels like they feel compelled to tell me, I don't have an artistic bone in my body.
Yeah.
I can't even draw a straight line. You know how many people tell me that? So it is my observation and estimation that most people need to confirm to themselves that they live and operate outside of that perimeter that allows for inspirational communication and expression. And of course, I believe that to be by design. Of course, inspiration goes way beyond artistic expression, artistic ability, artistic ideas. And let's just start by defining the word. As far as I'm concerned, inspiration means to draw spirit within oneself, to directly communicate, to allow spirit inside oneself. So if that's the case, then clearly, even by defining the word, we know that this does not at all refer to just artists and generally what we call creative individuals in this world.
I suppose if it was just a trait or an ability or a faculty which people used to create artistic pieces or writings or whatever, then there would be no point necessarily in the ruling class wanting to put a lid on it, because if everyone's going around painting and drawing and making sculptures, well, that's all good. I suppose it's the other aspects of it which are threatening. I suppose the curiosity and the questioning about possibilities and looking beyond the limits of how you're actually operating down in that little black hole with everybody else. The ability to ask those questions. I suppose that's where the threat comes from.
That's right. But what you just mentioned, ironically, these are all traits of the creative mind, of the artist. The questioning and the curiosity and the wanting to know what's behind that which I see on the surface. And so it's not like once you embrace the artistic expression family, instantly you become dangerous because of that. But it's because you understand, you become fully acquainted with what inspiration really is and where it comes from and how to summon it. So in this sense, being an artist always has been, throughout the ages, both a sacred task and or a rebellious task.
Dangerous for the artist.
Well, no, it has dangerous to the artist. Of course, the artist lives perpetually in a dangerous world, inside world, specifically because when you step inside that kind of realm of inspiration, that kind of realm of opening the door to spirit communication, because ultimately that's what I think it is. That's what I believe. That's what I know it is. Then it's not just the friendly voices that come through, you know. So you need to be able to develop both a discernment and the strength to deal with the negative aspects of it. I mean, we've all seen, actually, we've seen the artist's plight so much that it has become a cliche, like the tortured artist, right? This is a term.
Yeah, yeah. And everyone from Van Gogh to Dylan Thomas to Kurt Cobain doing away with themselves because they were too beautiful for this world, or whatever the various expressions are that are used, but not been able to deal with it. Jim Morrison, yeah.
I suppose this is why it becomes a scary proposition for people that are sitting on the outer realm of this. Should I step in, or should I just sit here and observe? But ultimately, look, you just said it in the beginning. Inspiration is all about being able to handle and welcome new ideas. New ideas are concepts of that could concern anyone, and I mean anything really, and not just obviously artistic expression, but it could have to do with building a new world, you know.
Well, science. I mean, the ability to question and challenge. I mean, true scientists in many respects are artists as well. Not the ones who are told what to do in most of the pharmaceutical companies, but the ones who are curious and interested and artistic in the way they approach the solving of problems. Those ones.
Yeah, it's problem solving. Actually, that's a really good term. Inspiration is about problem solving. So it's about, and if we look at this from the perspective of today, this era, this month, this date, this year, we're in 2021, and we see the world declining in a very horrifying way, seemingly because of a health issue, because of a virus. But we see people taking their lives. Right? They take their lives. And that's not because of that virus. We see people dying because of the decline within their emotional world, otherwise known subconscious mind. So it is a matter of survival. I would say, I would propose that inspiration and the ability to welcome it, to handle it, to invoke it and yield it is a matter of survival. Because survival is not just physical survival, right? Because survival is not, especially these days, you know, I mean, if we're talking about, I don't know, a few thousand years ago, perhaps, the most important kind of survival would be physical, because people were met with different kinds of challenges. But in today's world, most people don't have issues. They don't have challenges when it comes to surviving the elements, you see. Most people have shelter. The vast majority of the people have food and shelter. And yet, a lot of people are being defeated by their own mind. by their own emotional cosmos and take their own lives.
So, do you think that we have it too easy? That because we don't have to fight for food, fight for shelter. Now, obviously, there are some people who do, but for the most part, we don't have to deal with those physical challenges on a day-to-day basis in terms of physical survival. And because of that, we're not used to it. And most of what we actually have to deal with are relationship issues, work colleague issues, self-created problems such as financial problems and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of it is in our head. Do you think that the lack of those physical challenges, the lack of those survival challenges, have almost created too much time for us to spend in our heads? And as a result, some of us can't quite cope with that.
Absolutely. I do, yes. But I can't decide on whether or not this is a negative thing from the perspective that if we can agree on the fact that 1,000, 2,000 years ago, whatever, 2,000 years ago, you wouldn't have time to philosophize, to think about all these concepts that today you may be able to sit back and contemplate, and they can make you depressed. So the question is, should you not have the time to think about those things? Or it's good to have the time to think about those things and make up your mind and understand that it is actually a blessing. It's actually a extremely fortunate event that you have the time to contemplate these things. And even if they sound depressing and dark. So,
yeah, I've just had a further thought on that. So in the work that I do, the coaching work, I would say the predominant question that I get asked, or the predominant problem that people come with, is I've got this problem, or I've got these series of problems. How can I make it easier for myself? It's like as if we believe that we need to be, or that we should be, if we have it sussed, if we have life sorted out, then we shouldn't really have any problems. And if we do have problems, we can deal with them fairly quickly. So it's like as if we're running away from problems because we believe that we shouldn't have them. And because we feel we shouldn't have them, because we're being fed all of this nonsense from TV and media and all that sort of stuff, we're it's almost like we feel like we're something of a failure, because we have challenges and because we have problems and because we think about things. And I've had conversations with quite a number of people along those lines, and ended up trying to explain to them that, the object of the exercise is not to get to a place where you've no problems, because if you've no problems and challenges, then you will just go mad, because the problems and challenges give you the opportunity to use your brain, to use your power of reasoning, to use your power of problem solving, to actually make the best of each situation that you possibly can. And that builds resilience, and then you get better at it. But it's like it never goes away. But a lot of people believe that it shouldn't be there. They shouldn't have problems, and life should be easy.
right. Well, we know what happens. As we've talked about that before, the subconscious mind generally is a problem-solving machine, just like a computer would be. So, what happens, unfortunately, when the subconscious mind doesn't have anything of substance, any real problem to solve, it will create problems and attempt to solve them. So it's like you could say we keep on chasing our tails by not having. This goes back to having a mission, right? We talked about that as well many times. The importance of having a mission in life, the importance of having come here and the understanding that we've come here to fulfill a certain destiny. And most people don't think that. In this society, most people think they came here by accident and they are living by accident and they will die by accident. So when you have this kind of view in life, it is not at all rare that you develop a futile perspective and believe that it's all for nothing. You know, it's like, it's a coin toss. Hey, you know, who gives a shit? A speck of dust. You know, it goes back to the fact that we have been convinced that we are nothing, we are non-entities, we are insignificant. We don't matter. This is the ruling elite's perspective on the average Joe's life, I guess. So if you don't matter, what do? The thing that comes usually because of this situation, the thing that comes up is the mind needs to occupy itself with something. And if it cannot occupy itself with something worthwhile, such as allow itself to be inspired, connect, create anything. Again, when I talk about creation, I'm not solely talking about artistic creation. I'm talking about creation in terms of creating your life, you know.
But you with all of those, like if you decide, and just using the analogy of a visual artist as an example, you have to decide that you want to produce a painting or a beautiful photograph or whatever. You have to decide that you want to do that first. And by virtue of the fact that you decide that you want to do it, that now creates the challenge, because then you have to work out how it is you're going to do it. So the importance really of, if you don't have a challenge in front of you, you really need to consciously create one in order to ensure that you are firing on the cylinders of creativity and inspiration that you need. So if you decide you're going to write an essay or you're going to write a book, you know, starting with the blank page and overcoming the challenges associated with the blank page or the blank canvas in order to get something down is in itself overcoming a challenge. And within the overcoming of the challenge, content comes out. It may be good, it may be no good, but nobody really knows until it's finished anyway. So I think the big issue, I mean, you have the higher purpose or mission in your life, but even on a day-to-day basis, again, within the work that I do, like I struggle to get people to even plan out their day. And I don't mean plan it out in the sense that they've every half an hour blocked out in terms of what they're going to do, but even to have written out the 4 things they need to get done today, and they by virtue of doing that, they're creating a certain purpose for themselves. And often people work well when they're in a situation where a boss sets the target for them and says, I need this done by the end of the day, or I need it done by the end of the week. And they work to that relatively easily because we've been trained in school, you know, to do the right thing, do what the teacher says, and we'll get good marks if we do. And then we take it on into our work life. And I certainly found that when I stepped off that into working for myself, that I was like, it took me a while to readjust to the fact that I actually had to set my own expectations, my own goals, my own deadlines. Otherwise, I would just drift for long periods of time. It took me several years to actually get to that place. And I think a lot of people are in that situation, that they get up and they just go and do the routine things that they do. They have no sense of a purpose for themselves, and they just react to everything. So it's kind of no wonder when people step off a treadmill that they might be working in and they have not developed any kind of skill around setting their own goals and targets and creating challenges for themselves, how it is they would lose their mind. And as you say, then take ultimate steps like committing suicide or bury themselves in alcohol or drugs or whatever. Another way of committing suicide, I suppose.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. But the other question is this. Most people that are not used to dealing with these kind of concepts, about, like we're talking about a purpose, or you're talking about getting up and create your day, right? And in this society, all these concepts have become chores. They have become tasks. So we're talking about inspiration here. And as far as I'm concerned, inspiration can never be a task. It just can't. No, not from in the decades that I've been engaged in it. I can tell you one thing. It has never been a task. I have never woken up in the morning and said, oh shit, I have to start a new piece today. I have to work on it, I have to work on this kind of, how am I going to do that? It's bullshit. Because the approach is such in our everyday life that people believe that this is how they need to engage. This system has taught us this is how we need to engage. And if you don't do that, what are you doing? You are being a bum. I mean, listen to who's that dude that is like the greatest thing since sliced bread. The guy that came from the wine dude.
Gary V.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's like if he doesn't say it's cool, then it's not cool. How dare you? But here's the deal, man. Inspiration is like sexual arousal, brother. You can't. I mean, can you? Unless you're a porn star, you cannot just push yourself to get there. You know what I mean? Unless you're like Ron Jeremy or something, like a master of summoning that muse. But it is like that. You have to play. You have to get playful. Within your day, you have to set some time aside to fuck off. Do you know what I mean? To just look. Does a child need inspiration lessons? Right? I mean, look at them. I see my little girl, and she's always engaged in something. She has like this. Yesterday, she was doing this thing. She has this kaleidoscope, this plastic kaleidoscope, right? And she was putting it on the camera of her iPad and making movies. I'm like, holy shit, that's awesome. Good for you, baby. You know what I mean? Because it's like what is it? It's like this inner arousal that you can't turn it away.
But what I was going to say was that I get that bit, but like while you're waiting for that to happen, is there not the issue around practice and discipline that's actually required, to show up, to, write your 500 words or your 2,000 words like Stephen King or whatever. And sometimes it's crap and sometimes it's not. But the fact that you show up consistently means that you're giving the opportunity for that creativity, that inspiration to actually happen. Is that not a thing, or are you saying that you can only respond to it when it actually visits you, as it were?
This is what I'm saying. I agree with you 100%. You're right. Let me preface this by saying you're right. but there is a problem. The problem that most people have. What's going to happen if you preach discipline to the average person, right? What's going to happen? They'll be like, "What? Fuck off! Discipline? What is this? I'm going to go have a beer." You know what I mean? Discipline is not a sexy item. If you're selling inspiration, and even if you're selling discipline, you can't sell it as discipline, because only the hardcore, right, motherfathers will be like, discipline, yes, sign me up. What do I have to do? Do I have to lay on a bed of nails for 3 hours every day? There are those people at hardcore.
Yes, the Jocko Willink followers, the Navy SEALs, yeah.
The vast majority of the people are nowhere in that area. So you once again, for the 50th time, no, the 46th time, the subconscious mind is a bratty child. And there's one thing that it hates most of all: being told what to do. Right? So this is a disconnect. In most cases, this will be a disconnect, because people will look at what you're saying and be like, that takes work. This is bullshit, man. Don't make me work. What the fuck? Right? So of course, you're a professional. You know what you're doing. I'm not suggesting how you should do what you do. I'm just saying, when it comes to the way I approach this with myself, right? Because why? Because I am my own worst enemy, right? Because I will find 100 ways to get out of something that I have to do. And I'll find the most creative ways, I guarantee you.
Using inspiration, yeah.
I'd be like, inspiration, how can I get out of this bullshit? Boom, boom, it comes. You cannot, as far as I'm concerned, you cannot push yourself to be inspired. But you can intrigue yourself. You can trick yourself. You can tease yourself. Right? It's a game, man. Once again, I liken that to sexual arousal. And it's not, think of this concept, the concept of you met someone online, right? On Facebook, and they're awesome. Their pictures are awesome, beautiful. And you have exchanged a few messages, and I love how they think. and then, you talk on the phone, and you're like, their voice is so sexy. And then, you set up the first date, and you're on fire, right? You're just insane. You lose your mind. Now, take that, right, and compare it to being married for 20 years and setting up put it on the calendar with your wife on when you're having sex this month. it's actually it's a very, I think, a very simple and inspired way to understand how this stuff works. You can't just pull it out of you. I mean, I guess you could, but this isn't the most efficient method, is all I'm saying, you know? So how do we, how do we find inspiration? How do we start chasing that bitch? So, the muses, right? The muses. Gotta love the muses. This is like courting. This is like playing with yourself. Not in that way, but playing with yourself in a way in which you are able to trick yourself, to kind of like challenge yourself into a game and see what happens, right? Like, for example, let's say you're playing darts by yourself and saying to yourself, look, if I hit the center bullseye more than 3 times out of the 10, I get a reward, right? And all of a sudden the stakes are high. So this is a way to engage with yourself, with the subconscious, in a way that it gets responsive. But here's the more interesting part. The more interesting part is that in the process of doing that, you will start igniting all kinds of other synapses, firing up and discovering other things. This is the quest towards discovery. Like, I can tell you, for example, that at least 50% of my pieces, my artworks, have happened on something that one generally would refer to as an accident. Right? So what is an accident? An accident is not like, okay, I'm sitting there and like, how can I make I need an accident? God damn it. No, it's an accident is just living your life, allowing your life to happen. And when something goes seemingly off plan, it creates another kind of loop. It creates a loop. It throws you for a loop in which you see a different and new little possible universe in there. You know, like you know how many times like I'm drinking coffee, you know, minding my own business in the morning, and then someone says something and I get startled and the coffee spills all over my whatever paperwork. And then I see something in there. And I'm like, whoa, look at that. It's an angel. I love angels. I'm sure you know. So, do you see? I mean, does this make sense to you?
Yeah. No, I get the fact that often the most interesting inspiration comes when you don't expect it. I mean, that's why when, you know, you're doing something other than the thing you're looking for inspiration for, you'll often get it. So you could be working on something, trying to get some ideas together. Could be a business thing, could be a topic to write a blog post on or whatever, and you're not getting anywhere. So you leave it and you go and you do something else, not particularly to generate ideas, but just you got to go and do something else. And you're doing something else. You could have been walking around the supermarket and all of a sudden you see something written on a packet of cornflakes or something, you know, which all of a sudden triggers an idea. And then it's a case of, I must get this written down somewhere so that I don't forget by the time I go back to write the piece. So And obviously people have ideas in the shower and, all these kind of situations that which are away from the actual thing that they're trying to solve. Um, so yeah, when you don't force it, the good stuff tends to appear, I suppose. But the other side of it is like, and I'm sure you've done it too. Even a technique that I've used in writing is that just by writing, and not from the perspective of trying to write something clever or interesting, I just say I'm going to put my pen on the page and I'm going to keep the pen writing and moving for the next 15 minutes and we'll see what comes up. And sometimes just a load of rubbish comes up, and sometimes a whole piece could come up, or other times just the start of an idea could come up. But by virtue of the of just sticking with it, you're allowing that to come through you, and it's something that I've heard before. Artists, writers talking that when they've written their best stuff, often they feel like it literally is coming through them rather than something they actually consciously thought about. It was they were moving the pen or they were typing, but they weren't really thinking consciously about what it was that they were creating. All of a sudden they look at it and go, "Whoa, I didn't even realize I was writing that." But I think the thing, if you come back to the the conversations that you've had with people that they'll go into your store and tell you they haven't got an artistic bone in their body. That shuts off so much, because I think when those people, and obviously they do have inspiring ideas, they push them back down because they almost feel they're not worthy to have them. How is it that we move from a place where we actually start to believe that we can get inspiration, that we can get in touch with our intuition? How do we get ourselves to a place where we actually believe we have it? Because as we said at the outset, we've undergone a lot of conditioning to say that intuition and inspiration is only for a special few people.
Well, generally, what I tell people is that if you feel drawn to something, if you love a piece of art, if you love a piece of music, if you love a movie, like there are certain movies that you watch them and you just, it's like sipping this delicious beverage, because everything about them becomes inspiring. Everything about them becomes something that opens up new worlds inside of us, So pay attention to what you're drawn to. I think this is generally a very simple thing. People think that, I saw this thing over there and I loved it. But that thing and me were two different separate things, which is not true. Because for anyone to be drawn to anything, there has to be a common point there, right? You have to find that kind of thing, that kind of inspiration inside of you to be drawn when you look at it outside of you. Because it's like a reflection, like everything else. When you're drawn to someone, when you're drawn to anyone, a person, you meet someone, you're like, I like this person, or this person's an asshole. What happens? Like you recognize subconsciously, you recognize something within that person that you also share with that person, or don't. Right? So I believe that inspiration is following the breadcrumbs of that kind of recognition when you go around in life, in everyday life, you find things that you love. Right? You find things that you don't love. Just follow more of the things that you love. Just listen to more of the things that you love. Just look at more of the things that you love. Just read more of the things that you love. Do more of the things that you love. So this is, as far as I'm concerned, this is the process, because the more you do that kind of thing, the less someone else will need to right, motivate you. You know, the less you need it. Tony Robbins like, Tony Robbins, put a fire in my belly. Light a fire up my ass, because otherwise I don't know what to do. It's because of that sort of thing, right? We need to keep following that which we are attracted to. That's the recipe as far as I'm concerned. And this is why I felt compelled to have today's episode be about this. So,
Yeah, I get that. I mean, doing the thing that you love. I mean, I think that's crucial. Because I think no matter what you call it, I think this is the thing. Regardless of what you call it, whether you call it intuition, whether you call it inspiration, it actually doesn't really matter. But if you are doing that simple act of following what you're interested in, following, as you say, what you love, whether it's watching, like me, Shawshank Redemption for the 15th time and still, getting blown away by the opera music playing in the prison yard and all that sort of stuff. I still, I'd watch it another 15 times, and it just always does something. So those kind of experiences, if you know what they are, and you know that they have that effect on you, then that effect is really the connection with your spirit. It's that, and that's where as you said, drawing the spirit through you is what inspiration is. And I think the more you awaken that spirit by connecting to things that you love, the more you're likely to be inspired, the more you're likely to be influenced in a good way to follow things that you love doing as well. So what I'm saying is, if you consume things that you love, then you'll create things that you love. And I mean, that's usually what people talk about as being inspiration. They're usually talking about the creative part when someone has shown inspiration. So if you consume enough of the stuff that you love and that inspires you, then you're more likely to create and produce stuff that is inspiring as well. That's what I'm taking from this.
100%. Boom, that's it. When you are drawn to something, don't think you are an outsider being drawn to something, like you're like this common asshole and you stare at the magnificence of some other creator out there and you don't matter. You could never come close to something like that. That's not true at all. Like I said, it is a great practice to start understanding that whatever you're drawn to is something that you are capable of achieving. Of course, in your own flavor, in your own way. But that's when inspiration is flowing. So don't stop it by pretending that it has nothing to do with you, right? It's the current. Electricity doesn't just work for a few people. You know what I mean? If you have a plug and you got the thing, you stick it in and you too can get energized. So inspiration is exactly the same thing. So you just have to know what it is you need to plug in. You just have to come up with a need, an inner need. And that need could be just to play, of course. Because a chore would not be that kind of need. So that's it. I think we killed it.
Yeah, it's a fascinating topic. I think it is, I think it's just one of those. It's like one of those things that we've lost. It's a skill, and we've lost the ability to do it because it's almost like it's knocked out of us all the way along. So this is really about reconnecting with that skill, because I think once you start to do it, you reconnect pretty easily. And if you feed it more and more with things that you love doing, then it'll feed on itself and will start to produce good stuff. And even if it's not art, it could be you just become better at making decisions. You could become better at making business decisions. You could be better at picking friends. It's all kinds of things that will come from that place once you've got that muscle energized and exercised. So I think it's good. Yeah.
I couldn't have said it better myself. So think of that. Let us know what you guys think. If you have any questions, if someone is stuck with the inability to successfully chase inspiration, leave us a message and we'll ignite that for you. Okay, good. I think that it's a pretty good place to end today's topic.
Yeah.
Thank you, my friend, for your inspired and action. And
thank you for your wonderful and colorful analogies.
Colorful is all that I'm about. In more ways than one. So, there you go. May you be experiencing a week filled with inspiration of all sorts. And until next week,
let's be careful out there.
And don't let your mind kill you.
Thanks for listening to Your Mind is Trying to Kill You with Alexandros Megas and Vincent Byrne. If you like our show and want to make sure that you don't miss an episode, then we would love if you would subscribe on Apple Podcasts or on whatever platform you're listening to us on. And you'd be doing us a big favor if you would support us by leaving a review as well. It would also be great if you would take a screenshot of this episode on your smartphone and share it on social media. So join us next Wednesday when we talk more about mind hacking and taking back control of your life. Until then, have a great week.